find your agenda. We'll give you a few.
No, I know. I know. Literally. I mean, I have it in one place, and I can't find it, so it's fine. I know it was on it. I've got the backup material.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm late, guys. Apologize.
Sean, just let me know when you're ready.
There's a possibility that Susan Stover will be stealing my bandwidth tonight, just so you know.
She's right next to you on my screen.
Andre, we're all good to go.
You good to go? All right. I'm going to put on the Block Island time feed.
You're
To
muted.
be honest with you, Keith, we're much more interested in hearing her voice than yours.
I can,
Yeah, I'm looking at her.
I can wave to you guys if I reach far out this way.
I'm
My
sorry,
hand would
Keith.
stick out right over Keith's shoulder.
Keith, I believe that was a culturally insensitive comment you just made.
I know, I'm sorry. You're
I
right.
will.
Your wife.
Are we ready, children?
Sorry, Dad.
The gods will come down.
Good evening, everybody. I'm going to call this meeting to order. Wednesday, March 3rd, 2021. Town of New Shore work session agenda. Tonight, we're going to meet via telecommunications pursuant to State of Rhode Island Executive Order 20-46, dated June 12th, 2020. If you would like to raise your hand on your phone, you can do so by pressing *9. And to mute and unmute, you can press *6. We do not have the bandwidth to support a video link for members of the general public. So please dial in or watch the YouTube link at New Shoreham, at the YouTube link at New-Shoreham. With that, first item on the agenda is the meeting with the Block Island Health Services Board to discuss the renovation construction project and other issues of mutual concern. Is there anybody here this evening from the Block Island Medical Services Board? I'd like to start this off.
Do you want me to jump in and introduce, because I've been working with these folks a little bit, Andre, first?
Absolutely.
So for the council, I've been working with, soon after I started, the first couple of weeks, I had met with Dr. Walcott, just introduced myself, and he at that time told me that the medical center was in the process of a capital campaign for major upgrades, renovation, and expansion of the medical facility. Since that time, I've met with the building committee on a couple of occasions from the medical facility, which is chaired by Susan Stover. And we've met, like I said, a couple of times. We also went with our insurance company, the trust, to work out a few things in that regard with insurance. As the council know, you have work sessions every month, one work session. And one of the things I had suggested is that we start scheduling things ahead of time when I see things that are ripe to come forward to the council. And the medical center, I think, is ripe to come forward to the council as to where they are with their capital plan, their renovations, and the anticipated construction time, and how they are planning to proceed with that. So at this point, I would like to turn it over to Susan, who is the chair of the building committee for the medical center.
Thank you, Mary Ann. Susan?
Sure, thank you very much. I do want to say that Ray Torrey is and I are co-chairing this building committee, so I'm very happy. Ray is on the call. that's a recent change. Thrilled to have Ray in a leadership role on this, and Cindy Bowdy, our board chair, is on the call as well. I was hoping that Pete Tweedy, our treasurer, and indeed Dr. Workup would be able to join us. They may as the evening progresses. Dr. Workup said as long as anything clinical didn't interfere, he would join us. So thank you for letting us join you in your work session. I think all of you are very familiar with the medical center, with the incredible resource it is to the community. And several years ago, the strategic planning efforts pointed out that we really need to do some substantial renovations and expansion of the building to meet the needs for emergency care, as well as primary and wellness care for the entire community, for Islanders, people who live here, as well as for residents of, visitors of every length. So we worked with both Dr. Clark and now Dr. Workup to determine what the needs are for our our clinical space, because right now the especially emergency space where we treat trauma patients is woefully inadequate. So we're very happy to present these plans to you. I sent in an email to all the town councilors the proposed floor plans, as well as exterior elevations. These are close, we're pretty close to what we expect we will be doing, but I'm sure there will be changes. So in these plans, I think you'll see that we use the building to the best of our ability. We are trying to be as efficient in use of the space, as well as, of course, hopefully economical in terms of cost. And I do want to just point out an aside in terms of the cost. We are funding this privately. We are in a capital campaign. It has been a rather quiet capital campaign for the last 2 years. We sort of took a pause during the COVID time, but we have so far, from about 50 donors, raised nearly $3 million in pledges, and quite a lot of that money has already been paid. We're very confident in the remaining prospect pool. Both major donors and, frankly, every single member of this community, I'm sure, will understand the great need to make sure that we can take care of ourselves here. So I really hope that this is the beginning of the conversation with the community to convince everyone that we all need to make what is, for each one of us, a meaningful contribution to this effort. So that being said, we are looking at the plans. If you want to, let's see, why don't we go to, this is the basement. Why don't we start on the first floor, if whoever's, just click down a touch. Right between, we've just gone to page 3. I think we want to, oh, sorry. Yep, there we are. So if you'd like, I can walk you through the plans. Would that be a good way to proceed? And of course, please interrupt me and Ray and Cindy as well. Please don't let me take the microphone the whole night. I'll walk you through entering the building as we usually do. So for most of us, we enter the medical center in the left-hand portion there, through the front porch, the vestibule, and then the waiting room will remain as it is. You'll see when we get to the second floor, however, we are closing that cathedral ceiling, so we will use the full, oh good, oh, I'm so glad Dr. Workup has joined us. Hi, Tom. So glad you're here. And then we see the reception area is largely unchanged, although it is open to an elevator in the back. So we will have a full elevator to the basement, to the second floor, which will be located there in the back of that reception area. Then we'll go into the clinical space. And here I'd love to pass it off to you, Dr. Workup, to explain a little bit what our rationale is for the additions and slight changes to the layout there of the primary and the emergency care space.
Sure. So the main modification to this area is right now we run with 3 clinical rooms. We have the 2 rooms on the left, and then we have one on the far bottom right, the southeast corner on this program. And now you're going to see the 4 green rooms, which are now going to be exam rooms. So we'll have the core space together, which would just be for efficiency. And as you go from the ambulance bay straight back for the new addition, if you look to that first, right at the corner, the junction of the new building and the old, on the left-hand side, there's a blue box. That is the current trauma room that we have, but it was very important that I think that we have line of sight both into the trauma area and into the main core. So that way, on months like this, we can run off the core area and still have line of sight from a nurse's station. In that nursing station, there'll be landing work zones for the students as well as for EMS that can do some of their paperwork right there on site versus they kind of balance the laptop on their lap currently. The X-ray room is unchanged, other than we're just going to quarter off that wall so it's a little bit easier to maneuver the gurneys. And then the 2 green on the middle upper right, so the northeast corner, those are going to be 2 appropriate ED bays. So right now we have the trauma room that gets extremely crowded, but now we'll have 2 ED bays that have sizable room to where if we had to put 2 beds each, we could expand out to be 4 emergency beds, but otherwise it'll be a 1-bed dedicated room with all of the piped in medical gases that we need. But if we keep it from being a quote unquote trauma room, we stay out of the DOH's designations that have to have permanent medical gases rather than us having a manifold and piped in gases from the basement. So there is some architectural terminology that we're trying to stay away from. So that it's basically a trauma bay, but it's actually called an ED bay. And then the blue in the northwest corner will be provider offices with a consultation room in case we have to have some difficult conversations with patients or some injuries that may happen. But it allows us to have a much more appropriate flow. So the ambulance will come in, the person will go straight back. They don't have to be exposed to the core room with those 4 little green rooms on the left. But it also allows us to not have to completely segregate off the area. We can work in the core space with line of sight. If we have to put a trauma patient in, and then we have the ability to flow back and forth. Right now, it gets extremely congested when we're trying to add that 3rd room in the far right of our office now and try to use the trauma room. People can see in, privacy is certainly a concern. And then that bottom left, or the southeast corner will now be a more appropriate lab. So right now our lab sits in really what is a very large closet, but now all of our lab features will be in that particular room, which allows for better storage, better access, and the nurse will also have a private landing zone in there if she has to take a phone call. And then the difference in the waiting room, if we go back where Susan started, the area where the dental suite is now, we're going to that's where behavioral health is going to. We're going to pull it out of the basement, both literally and figuratively, and put it right there. So there'll be a telehealth room to really enhance the telehealth access that we currently have with Butler Hospital. But we'd like to do more with specialists with telehealth, and that'll be the official landing zone. And then there'll be these behavioral health consultation room that can accommodate a family in that southwest corner. And then dentistry will go downstairs in their own dedicated space that you'll see on one of the other footprints.
If I can
What
just point
questions
out
do you guys have?
one detail that I'm not sure might not be clear. It might not be clear is that in that care team area there at the elbow between the primary care delivery and going into the ED space, that's a counter. That white strip is a half wall, so it's very much open to conversation visually.
Yep.
So it's not a solid wall.
So you can see that within that contained area, you can see into the trauma bays, but you can also see into the core of the office. So that way, from a safety standpoint, because way one of the original plans looked is that it was so segregated off, but we have the same people that have to work here. So it isn't like we're going to have more staff. So we just have to be able to see each other and communicate well.
And the
Brilliant.
walls into the emergency rooms, the emergency bays will be glass, most likely with a frosted privacy area. So again,
Yep.
there is visual contact, but of course privacy as well.
If you've ever unfortunately been in South County Hospital ICU, that's the way they have their glass. They have a middle third opaque barrier, but then you could see above and below it. So you can see in for safety, but there is a little bit of privacy.
Thank you, guys. Counselors, do you have any questions on this?
No, we're going to keep going through the other floors.
Sure, happy to. So maybe we'll go down to the basement. Yeah, here we are. So Dr. Workup, do you want to continue since this is
So
clinical?
in the, sure, in the southwest corner here, the far left of this graph, that's going to be right now currently where physical therapy is. The gray rooms are mechanical rooms. Currently, there's some piping in there. Those will continue to be those type of rooms. But the green rooms adjacent to that will now be dedicated dental operatories. And above it in the pink space, they'll have their own dedicated waiting room. And it'll be a sizable waiting room that both physical therapy and dentistry can use. The reason why dentistry is excited about this is that it's hard to pick out on here, but right when you enter into the basement, there's one of those panoramic x-ray machines that you might get at your dentist office where it goes around your head. That's not something that's movable. So it's right now, older individuals have to somehow get into the basement to get their pictures, either by the lift, by the stairs, and it's definitely disjointed to the current dentistry flow. So now it'll all be housed together, which will be terrific in our opinion. Then as you move east, we're going to have some multi-use rooms and offices. As we expand for paramedicine, this will be a space for the paramedicine office to be. I can't read the little fine print anymore, what we put over here, but
Yeah,
we're
there's a
also going to have,
multi-purpose room and
Yep.
offices.
and then the green ones in that southeast corner is going to be for chiropractic, physical therapy, acupuncture, massage therapy that we currently have. Try to get them to share space. And then you'll see the mechanical rooms are shaded in gray. There's a fair amount of mechanical rooms in the basement. And then as you go north, there's a dedicated physical therapy space that has the ability to have group classes and space that allows for physical therapy, both individual and group, for the wellness program to continue to expand. And there's also a shower down here if necessary, and areas on the far right that are in that more yellowish buckets where people could store locker material and other personal items that we can store for physical therapy. And since it's right there, it'll have its own entrance, but we really were making sure there was enough room for elders to do group physical therapy and wellness classes.
Thank you, Doctor.
And then on the third floor, as I said, we will take over the now cathedral ceiling space above the waiting room. So there will be an office there, as well as 2 other offices to the west and a conference room, and we'll maintain a kitchen as we now have in the second floor. And then a really exciting part of this program is that we realize we can put our housing in this building. As we all know, housing is a incredibly challenging challenge for all of us, especially as we need our visiting medical students and medical residents, particularly in the height of the summer. So to house them in the building just seemed like a perfect solution to a lot of problems. So what we have here are 4 dormitory style shared kitchen, shared bathrooms, accommodations for the students and medical residents. And then another in the middle of the building, a sort of suite, almost like a long stay suite setup right in the center of the building. If you come down, whoever has the pointer down, there you go, right there. So that would be mostly for a mid-level career, not a student provider coming in to help either for relief, for a specialist visiting, and so that will solve a lot of the challenge that we often have of where to house these students, especially as we're looking to no longer have use of the Thomas property.
Thank you, Susan. Anything else? Or
And if we go through the elevations, or, the exterior, I think I want to give great credit to, we've worked with 2 architects on this project. Bob Ignari, who is a longtime Island summer resident, has fine-tuned the designs that we worked with a firm called NBBJ on. And Bob came up with this really wonderful, I think, exterior elevation that marries the addition, the expansion of the right side of the building, if you will, to the more originally looking house of the left side, with the gable, and to the north, the ridge line. It just, I think it matches the island character in terms of the architecture, and I think is just very, very pleasing. Like I said, these are our proposed plans. They're not final, but we expect they're getting close. So we're very, very happy with these, and we love your feedback, your questions.
Counselor, any questions?
I'll start, Andre.
Thanks, Mark.
I see they're gonna, I'm not going to even attempt to micromanage you guys or the architects, but a couple of questions. I see you're relocating solar. Are we relocating the elevator too? Because that's quite expensive.
We're actually putting in a brand new elevator is the plan. What we have now is a lift. It's not, it's not a full elevator. So that is one of the major components of this change is we will have that elevator, which will be just to the north of the reception area. So it will move completely to a different part of the building.
Is there value in repurposing that old elevator to get a little bit of money for it?
If you can find someone who wants to buy it, that would be fabulous, but I don't think it's a reuse.
Yeah,
situation. At least that's what I've heard from the professionals. Yeah, please, Ray.
I'd like to comment on that. It's not an elevator that we have. It's a lift. It's very primitive, and it has been problematic. And I've had to attend to some kind of maintenance on that for several times over the years. So that what we really need is a bona fide elevator that will serve all 3 floors. It's just like I'm glad to get rid of what we have.
Thank you, Ray.
The second question is, again, not to micromanage, but the insulation they used 30 years ago or 30 plus years ago, there must be improvements in sound insulation, and I hope that's being heavily valued with this new construction.
Good point. Good point. I will.
You can hear me scream when I get my shots in every room.
You're definitely right, Mark, because we have trouble maintaining the heat on days like yesterday. When it was -1 with the wind chill, whether it be the window configurations or something, the heat is on, but some of the rooms never get really much higher than about low 60s.
Okay, so it's twofold for heat and AC retention and for sound retention for privacy.
Yeah, we tell everybody it's not
Absolutely.
good for business if you're screaming in the rooms. It's not good for business.
I'll try not to scream anymore. And the
I
last
would
thing,
like to, I would like to comment, and thank Dr. Walcott for saying that, because my house, back, a couple of days ago when it was blowing 50 and it was below 20, I never did get above 62. And I thought it was only my new furnace, but that's the way it goes, I guess.
my last question deals with parking. Is there going to be adequate parking? And if so, is it going to go in the back next to the Davidson house? Is that garage going to be removed?
There's going to be,
No,
there'll be some enhancements there. What we're going to be able to do is, if you recall, there's a rock wall back there between the generator space and the current parking area. So if we make some landscaping changes, our initial plan is to take where the dumpsters are now and put them closer to the west and north by the Davidson house, which can be obscured by landscaping. And then we have about 4 to 5 feet to go out to the rock wall to where we could reclaim that, because the roof line will come out to the current back area. So that way we can still use that for staff, decongest the front part. And then in the summertime, it's, as you know, the school parking lot's full and everybody's trying to park in different areas. So right now, everybody will be entering through the front of the building and no longer entering from the behind the building, which is where that lift is. And so now if you need to get to the elevator, we still want you to traverse through the front of the building, mainly so we can keep an eye on everybody. So the reception desk know everybody who comes in through the building versus multiple egresses and entrance points. So the parking will not necessarily be larger, but it might be a little bit more functional in the back for staff. And then the rest of it will be maintained in the front as is.
My final question is, it's fantastic that you have almost $3 million pledged. Do we have some kind of idea on what the final cost might be?
We are working on that, and now that we have these much more detailed floor plans, that is one of our next projects, is to really drill down on the budget estimate. I'd be taking a stab, Mark. I really don't know exactly. I mean, our capital campaign goal when we set this almost 2 years ago was $7.5 million. 3 million of it we were hoping to designate to growing our endowment, so leaving about 4.5 for this project and other capital projects at the medical center. So I think we're gonna do it. We have to, frankly. I mean, this is not a want. This is a need, and so far the community has responded incredibly. The people that we have spoken to, and it's been a quiet face. Anyone who's listening, if you haven't heard from us, please, we will find you or find us, because we want everyone to be involved in this. As anyone who has done a capital campaign, been involved in a capital campaign, you need to do the quiet phase first, and I'm very gratified with the early response. So
We've been trying to be very thoughtful that we want to do this one time. Obviously the medical center's been around for a while, but the housing is a critical need for us, and having the ability to bring some specialists in, which housing again has been one of our rate limiting steps. So we're trying to be thoughtful about with the area of the taking over the above the waiting area. We had talked about that. Is that a this time project or a next time project? But we're trying to do it once and do it correctly, so we have ability to grow further.
Hey, 40 years
And
ago,
that-
we were going
that
to
brings-
Cornbrooks at the doctor's house.
that brings to mind a really important point that I want to be sure that you all understand we're considering carefully, and that is that we provide healthcare every single day of the year at the medical center. And we know when we do this project, we need to very carefully consider phasing and ensuring that we will still have a functioning medical center every day while we're doing this construction. So know that we understand that challenge, and we'll we'll do it. I mean, that was one of the reasons why I was so happy to work with Bob Ignori. He has done commercial work with very strict phasing processes, so we're not going into this inexperienced. At least some of us are out of experience. So,
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
Andre?
Go ahead, son.
Yeah, real briefly. First of all, congratulations, Cindy, Susan, Tom, just Ray. Really, really nice job and great having the drawings, and thank you for taking us through them. I remember, I think it was like 2015 when there was a planning board group doing sort of strategic asset review, and at that point the basement was looked at and everybody sort of thought about the potential, or that cathedral ceiling, thought about the potential. And the fact that you're having housing in there is a huge, huge, huge plus in my book. And then the fact that you're really approaching this as a self-funded effort is fantastic. So congratulations to you guys. Thank you. And thanks for the update. Look forward to helping out, and no need to call the resums. I'm sure you're funding it very, very well. Call the Bros.
oh no.
All the Emmanuels, Thank you guys very much. Congratulations.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I know you have other things on your agenda. Don't want to drop off until you're.
I don't have any. I really appreciate the work you guys have done. I think we all do. So,
Great. Well, thank you.
if you need anything else,
And I want to thank Marianne and the rest of the people in town hall, because we've had very clear communication, and obviously this is a town-owned building, so we're working very closely with the town, and again, it's just so gratifying to be working on such a group effort for all of us. So I really appreciate what Marianne's doing and the rest of the people at town hall. Thank you.
thank you, Susan. Counselors, any more questions on this topic? Comments, anything? Any public? No public questions, no council questions? Right, well, I think, thank you, Ray. So you're waving there. Susan?
Thank you.
Thank
And
you very
Thank
much,
you very
everyone.
much.
Tom,
Thank you.
Peter's iPad, which I know is Cindy. Thank you, Cindy.
Yeah.
I love that.
Thank you, Andre.
You're welcome.
Take care.
I
Good
can't
night.
take that name off it.
That's okay, don't.
Reminds us all of great things, Cindy.
Yeah, don't.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Night.
Right. Good
All right.
night.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.
Well, you
Adios.
don't,
It's
none of
pretty
you, have-
good. I called at 7:30 or 7:34.
none of you have to leave. All
We'll be
right,
back tomorrow night.
Now we get the other over.
thank you. All right, number 2 is on our agenda is discuss and act.
What
Thank
did,
you.
Good meeting.
yeah, what happened?
Number
There
2
you
on the agenda is discuss and act on the town council rules of procedure. This was something that, as a new council, I think back in January, it was one of my requests to put on the agenda. Mary Ann's got it on this agenda. So everybody, I think, has the council rules of procedure on here. And I don't know, Mary Ann, how if you want to handle going through these, or
I thought what we do this evening for a brief period of time. I don't see this as being a one and done situation. We'll come back to you folks probably sometime in April at the next work session. At least that's when I have it slated for. It doesn't mean we have to definitely do it then. But really not go over these in every single line items per se, but get some feedback. You all have had the opportunity to look at these rules and regulations of these policies and procedures. I'm sorry, rules or policies of the town council. And if anything that you want to change or thoughts that you may want to change or add, we can work through it a little bit tonight, but leave the final. I would like to approach this the same way that we did with the charter amendments. Once we understood the charter amendments that the council thought would be best to present to the voters, you give it back to staff to work on and wordsmith it out and then come back to you folks. The good news, I think this would be a little easier than the charter amendments. So that's what I thought we'd do tonight is come back with some thoughts and ideas and let staff go back, and then we can bring it back to you, and then we could also take another crack at it when we bring it back to you. So that's my thought this evening.
Thank you, Kathy. Counselors, any input?
Andre, I'll start.
Go ahead, Martha.
Well, there are some things I think are obvious, and there's some realignment of deadline dates for agendas and all. These were written before the open meeting laws changed to exclude weekends and all. And that's just, I think that's something that really has to come from staff to figure out what numbers work and what days work. And that's like 10 and 12.
Yep.
And the other thing, the thing that we really got hung up on, and I think if you go, oh gosh, where is it? It's putting things on a council agenda. That's something that it seems to be working fine now. It didn't for a while.
Into it, and then
Where are we? I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Martha. That was just some
Oh,
feedback.
just somebody talking.
Yeah.
Okay. There was a, there's a reference here. Things have to be in the council folder, and I think that's a hangover from the old days when anybody wanted something on the council agenda, they just put it in the council folder. And I think we need to have a better process. We got, as I said, we tried doing this, oh gosh, a couple of years ago, and it just turned into this incredibly complicated, complex absurdity. And I think there has to be just a real simple way of making something that will carry forward and be there to go back to if you get a first ward who doesn't want to put anything on the agenda. Because I just don't think that's the way government should be run. We have to, I think we have 5 members, 5 votes, and people should have an opportunity to have something as long as it's not totally unreasonable. But the process just isn't here because, as I said, when these were originally done, it was a much simpler time.
Martha, can I build on that a second?
As long as you don't make it 17 pages long, sure.
So item 12, I do think there's need, so a little bit of feedback from Marianne, and I think I'm building on your point. There's need for a process that is that folder bullet, Martha. But we just don't want to get it overly burdensome. I know there's been discussions around, you got to have a paragraph and it's got to fit a form and all this kind of stuff. And I just think sometimes an agenda item can stand alone because it's sort of obvious. Other times maybe a description, but some structure there would be helpful, whether it's a day in ahead or an hour. I don't care what it is, just something. Because to Martha's point, if the first warden doesn't want to put something on the agenda, there's a way to quote unquote get it on. Thank you, Martha.
Thank you, Sven. And I think I said this on the way on one of the first meetings. Everybody who wants something on an agenda, I'll put it on the agenda. I'm not going to say I'm not going to put that on the agenda. However, I would like to make sure that everybody knows that if you want to put something on the agenda, be ready to talk about it, do the homework on it, maybe discuss it with Mary Ann, because a lot of times agenda items need staff input. So, like I said, I don't want to say, I've been there when you want stuff on the agenda and it's kind of difficult. So as I firmly believe that there's 5 of us here, we all have a voice. No voice is stronger than the next, except for, obviously me being the first warden that has to actually run the meeting and set up the agendas. But if anybody ever wants anything on the agenda, I'm never going to stand as a roadblock to that.
Andre, I'm glad you said that because that was my only concern. Because a previous first warden refused to put many items I asked to be put on agendas for my entire tenure. So it's refreshing to hear you say what you said, but that definitely has to be written down here so that the next first warden might be too arbitrary on what he or she puts on that agenda.
Thank you, Mark. And we are here in the present and we will move forward, for the betterment. So I think on that topic, just be ready. Just if you put something on the agenda, just be ready to discuss it. Because if you put it on the agenda, generally I would say, Mark asked us or Sven asked us to be on the agenda. Sven, do you want to start the conversation? Or Mark, do you want to start the conversation? So, and I also like to just make sure, like I said, we're ready to have it on the agenda with the town manager. So I think that request should probably go to the clerk and the town manager. I know we send things for distribution of the council to the clerk, but I would actually say to CC the town manager also, so she gets a heads up on the idea of something maybe coming up. So I agree with all that.
Actually, Andre, or is Martha done? I felt.
I'm not sure.
Martha, do you have anything else?
No, I just got muted. I did not do that. I don't know what happened. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. No. I think I'm not talking about what we're doing now. I'm talking about having something written down that will be here, so the next council doesn't come into the position that we came into before, and that other councils I'm sure have in the past. It's outdated. I mean, if you read the language clearly, it's outdated. It's unclear. It was, as I said, it's the last time I'm going to say it. It was very clear when it was written, and it certainly isn't today. So this needs to be changed.
Andre or Marianne, I would suggest, and one of my notes was a paragraph about distribution of material. I know at times we get hung up a little, I don't say hung up. We are cautious about rolling agendas and rolling quorums and all that kind of quorums, especially. And I think it's a good bullet in here for a new town council member coming on board to have it written. Hey, if you want to have something distributed, send it to the clerk and copy the town manager, and it'll be distributed to everybody versus, me writing everybody. And next thing you know, people are responding and we trip our way into a rolling quorum. So I do think that would be a good addition.
Yeah, and I'll refer to the binder that everybody got by the town.
Yeah.
Before when everybody got elected with all the rules like that about the open meetings, the charter and everything like that. And I did say everyone's going to have a test on that at one point. So I think maybe that test should be coming soon. Anybody else?
So can I ask the councilors something? If you look at number 18, it talks about the councilors shall meet on the first Monday and third Wednesday. I'm fine with that. Is that something you want to consider?
What an archaic thought.
Is it something, it doesn't have to be, I'm just bringing this up in the sense, you don't have to make a decision tonight, but are you happy or do you like the process that we have in place being the first Monday and the third Wednesday? So that's a thought.
I think, yeah.
Actually, I believe it's the first Monday, first Wednesday, third Monday, right?
Yeah, the third Monday is a work session. The work session isn't even enumerated here in this policies and procedures.
Again, to your point.
But before I enumerated that, I wanted to be sure that you're okay with what we're doing currently with the meetings.
I am. Let's work well.
Okay.
Except when you're in a pandemic, it seems, I mean, you guys know we have a meeting tomorrow. Our regular meetings on Mondays and Wednesdays are fine with me. The past year, we've been off that. In addition to that, on top of that, but as we're called to do the business of the town, I guess we can schedule those meetings within 48 hours. And
Yeah.
Yeah,
This talks about regular council meetings, so that's the term regular is before that. Some of these other meetings we've had, I've looked at special council meetings, and maybe we should put something in there about special council meetings. Let me think about that.
I don't think we
And-
need to. I'll cover it under the open meeting law.
Yeah, that's true.
What'd you
Which
get?
is
Number
which is
21.
referenced the second part of 18.
Yep, 18.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Right. Sven, do you have a comment? Sven, do you have anything?
No, I don't. Keith looks like he has.
I
his
do.
hand.
I
I don't have Keith.
some.
Oh, I'm sorry. Keith, just speak up.
Oh.
I don't have you. I don't have you. in
Oh
the-
yeah, that's right. I forgot we talked about that today.
I don't have you. I just rolled over. Okay, go ahead.
Yes, sorry about that. I don't even know whether this is a rules and procedure, but I've been wondering whether there's value in having a consent calendar, particularly as we're doing Zoom meetings where you can't do simple voice votes, where you've got to go through a roll call on virtually every motion that gets made, and whether there's a way to organize the agenda in such a way. This is really with an eye toward reserving time for the stuff that everybody wants to talk about, and not spending too much time on stuff that's relatively pro forma. So we had, virtually all of our votes end up being, particularly on administrative matters, if you will, end up being 5-0 anyway. And it just seems like, if we could either item by item, or even, I've also seen it done where a consent agenda gets proposed prior to meetings, and each council member has the ability to pull something off of consent. But it might even be where the town manager and the first warden are vested with the authority to propose a consent agenda prior to every meeting. I'm not exactly sure how, what everybody would be comfortable with, or whether they're even comfortable with the concept. But I think about our meeting the other night where we cranked well into the night, and a lot of it was on stuff that was pretty straightforward and relatively administrative. So anyway, that's my thought.
Andre?
So can I? Oh, okay.
I could,
Go
could
ahead,
I say something else?
Mary Ann, and Martha, go ahead, and then Mary Ann.
Yeah, I just wanted to offer some background. We had, I'm not sure who, I did at least, had extensive conversation with Ed about doing that. We had an agenda that was, I think, 24 items long one night, and went through it and realized, you look at, it didn't take, we just sort of went bang, bang, bang on a bunch of things, and he had been talking about consent agreement, consent items for quite a bit, and we backed off on it after that because we realized that, and let's be honest, the thing that there were two, you're going to be in quicksand when you start talking about a deer. You always are.
Mhm.
It just happens, and that wouldn't be helped. The things that take all the time are not the things that would be solved by this. We had, Andre, were you part of that conversation? We had extensive conversation about it. I just remember talking with Ed. I think we even had an agenda to talk about it at one point. We decided not to do it after really reviewing it.
I've been on and off talking about it with Mary Ann, also since Mary Ann's been here. I think our agendas would go a lot quicker. Prior to us, we had meetings. Sometimes we were done in an hour and a half. But since this council's been here, we've been rocking. Something last night. Not last night, but it could have been last night. I don't know. But our last meeting was almost midnight when I got home, and I'm absolutely fine with that. But there are some things on these agendas, with the approvals and whatnot, of certain things, like Keith says, administrative things that we could put all together and for efficiency and time's sake to get done. And I know that also that people like, when we're in person, I can see, the seats over here. I can, I know sitting at, people like to have input on everything, and that's fine. But the way we've had to do things lately is, I think we could get a lot done if we could have the consent agenda, especially if it was administrative things. And like I said, I've been talking with Mary Ann about that. And with everything that's going on, I think after the budget, maybe we are going to start really looking at the agendas to see how they can be more efficient. And we can get that work done. Because quite frankly, by 9:30, 10 o'clock, you got, you kind of, depending on, like you say, depending what's on the agenda, like deer or something like that. I said to Mary Ann after the meeting the other night, I said, Mary Ann, no more 15-item agendas that include deer. I mean, deer can stand alone. You're totally right.
If you had 3-item agenda, we probably would have been there as, it's the items. That's all. I mean, as long, if you really think it would work better, I'm fine with it. I just don't know if the amount of effort that goes into arranging it. And I certainly think the order could be arranged in a more efficient manner, because it does seem like we go from doing it that way to doing it chronologically, what came in at what time, and we'll have something that belongs. I mean, I can't remember we had something this summer that moved because it was just like, seriously, this can't be right. But I think that's more of an internal structural thing that can change as it happens. I don't think that's a rules of procedure issue necessarily.
Right.
Andre, I think there's a couple of matrices here. I like the idea of the consent agenda in the sense of organizing and gaining efficiency. I also think we had started and seem to have gotten away from, but we had started the idea of having some of the legal agenda items early. Remember, almost at the very beginning, so that Kathy could attend and then not, be able to leave. And that I thought worked out pretty well, because sometimes those are heavy items that when you get to them, you're already 4 hours in and it's tough. So one is the order, like Martha said, but 2 is legal up front. And then the third, I think, is this spacing out where, 2 heavy items in one agenda is just tough. And I'd almost rather have 2 shorter meetings 2 nights in a row than one meeting where I feel like I just, putty is a good word. But I noticed, like the other night, and I just felt bad, we had a couple of consultants. Jim Jeremiah was on for probably an hour and a half waiting, and he added tremendous value and did a great job. But, it'd be nice to be able to get those people, moving on for their own lives. So I think there's the order, there's the consent, and then there's the weight of them, like Martha said.
Yeah, Mary Ann, I know, is taking notes on this. And,
So can I jump in really quickly here? Everything that you folks are saying, first of all, I think the agenda is a separate item than rules and procedures, so they somewhat overlap a little bit. When I first came here, I looked at the agenda, how it's set up, and I said, it needs to be tweaked. And that's a nice word. I'm used to like the consent agenda. When I've had consent agenda, like Sven just mentioned, Jim Jeremiah, where some experience that I've had with other agendas and other agencies, when we had consent agenda, one of the things that were in there was a bid award, because it's a standard bid, we telling you what the award is and stuff like that. And as with the consent agenda, you have items A through F. The council can at any point, before they vote on the consent agenda, the first one is say, is there any item in the consent agenda that anyone would like to pull out? And then you could pull it out, separate it, put it under new business or something like that, and vote on everything else, and then leave that for new business, or however we decide to do it. So that addresses, like Sven just said, regarding Jim Jeremiah, that he was there for an hour and a half before we got to his particular item. So the agenda is something I really want to work on, and I want to change the setup of it to hopefully facilitate the meetings going forward. And that way we have the same, you'll see the same things in the same area of the agenda. So as meeting to meeting, you have some consistency. I've also, with the executive session, I've seen that also take place before the meeting for that exact reason. If you're talking whether it's negotiations, if you're talking about a personnel matter, if you already had a 3.5 to 4 hour meeting, you're making some really important decisions at that point. And sometimes to have an executive session, maybe a half hour before the regular session, or even an hour before the regular session, can be helpful in twofold. Is that you have the executive session before the meeting is one, and two, if it starts at 6:30, you know you have 30 minutes. It puts you on a timeline and a timetable to get it done. So the agenda piece, I agree with you. I really would like to start looking at that. I'm not sure if that's going to be part of councils and procedures, and we can all, I mean, I can start working on something and we can continue the conversation about the agenda as we move forward.
Thank you.
But I like all the ideas you folks are coming out with, because these are some of the things I've already thought about. So it's encouraging to hear that this is information that you folks also would like to start looking at.
I know I mentioned it before too, is any counselor with a legal question for Kathy, just if they could send that request to myself and Mary Ann, so that everybody gets the question and everybody gets the same answer.
Mhm.
Just put that, Mary Ann, just put that on your list for the discussion. And
I had one more question, Andre, and again, I'm obviously the total rookie here, so bear with me. But following up on what you said, Andre, at the beginning of the last meeting, I actually drafted a sort of I don't know, an inclusion and diversity piece that really is about the sort of the principle that we are going to be inclusive. We're going to strive for a diversity of opinion. We're going to proactively work on hearing from people who sometimes in our culture have remained unheard. And I don't know whether this is where a principle like that goes, but I think it's worth talking about and worth putting somewhere.
can I stop you for 1 second? I think we lost.
Of course.
I think we lost Martha.
Oh, shoot.
We did lose.
You're right.
Moses, wait.
I wish I had a resolution to read.
I'm calling it right now.
Yeah.
Well,
Do we have any more bonds to issue?
Mark, on that note, Mark, I signed the resolutions this morning, and you may want to double check. I think there was one that you didn't sign. It may be the pages got stuck.
I think it pertained to taxi, so I didn't.
Oh, okay. Hmm.
Okay, Martha's back with us.
Yeah, Martha's back. Keith, I don't know, Keith, if you want to start from the beginning, because I think it was gone.
Sorry.
All right,
Mary
Martha,
Ann talking when it went. I have no idea what happened. The call didn't get dropped. I just
It was
shut off.
you were spared from listening to me drone on, Martha. I was just saying, I acknowledge that I'm a rookie at all this, but in light of what Andre was speaking about at the beginning of our last meeting, I was wondering whether rules and procedures might be a place where we would put a very clear statement about our desire to be inclusive, to actively seek out voices from the community who have not been as heard or as present as they should be in our conversations and discussions and commentary. I actually drafted something and sent it to Marianne today. Literally was just a stream of consciousness narrative, but I actually think there would be some value to, some kind of statement of principles along those lines.
Thank you, Keith. Sen, do you have
Okay,
something?
I think my reaction,
Go ahead,
Yeah.
I, it feels like, and I felt the same way about some things that were proposed for the charter, that it feels like we're missing a place where we would have that sort of statement, because rules of procedure seems to me just an operating document.
Yeah.
And we're talking more of a policy, mission, code of conduct, perhaps. Maybe a code of
I
conduct.
think that's a great point.
A point to be added,
Mhm.
not to have it in procedure, but because we also had decorum on that, and I think that's very important. We had a problem before with, it wasn't somebody on the council. I think everybody on the council thought I was talking about them, and I was talking about somebody in the audience who was treating us really, a couple of us really rudely. That I think is something that should be included somewhere in some fashion.
I think that's a great point, Martha. It's kind of why I prefaced it by saying, I don't know where it belongs. I do think there's value, for us, as you say, to have that kind of stuff somewhere. And you're right about the way we drafted the charter. I think there were things in that wisely were ultimately not included, that were more statements of principle than guiding governing documents. Or
maybe we should even put in the rules of procedure that the council no later than a couple of months after being sworn in shall adopt a code of conduct, because it's not. I'm afraid also if you put it in a document that you said gets handed out, it's something that needs to be reviewed by every incoming council.
Mm-hmm.
And to be reminded it exists.
That's a good idea.
I'd love, building on that, I'd love to see if there's interest in adopting what I'm going to call principles of the town council, or we can come up with any word you want, but sort of those, to your point, Martha, like those 4 or 5 points. And I think Keith touched on one of them, decorum's another one. And I think that's sort of the page before the rules and procedures, right? It's like, what are our principles? How are we going to act? And how do we respect? And I'd love to go there.
Can I jump in here?
Oops, sorry. Go ahead. I was going to say, I think we have the thing that Andre had the other night. This is something to build on, but again, I'd make it something that have to be revisited by any new council.
That's a great idea.
Signed up. Yeah, signed on.
So one of the things that I've seen that I thought about is and this was just in South Kingston, what they did, they adopted school committee norms or council norms. And the council norms were just that. There were about 4 or 5 things. And it was on the top of every agenda item, the council norms. It was just part of the agenda. So we could do something like that also, have it be council norms. You talk about code of conduct, council norms, or something like that. And it could be bulleted, and it reminds, and the reason why we decided to put it on the agenda is because each meeting, they read through very quickly and then reminded everyone who was participating in the meeting what the norms were of the committee. And once they did that for a couple of months, they just didn't read them through every single time, but they just said the agenda tonight under item number 1 is the council norms or the committee norms.
And Marianne, I love that idea too. I think that not only just how the council has norms, but how the town should conduct council business. Because there have been a number of times since I've been on the council where there have been a few members of the community who have literally stormed in, screaming, pointing fingers at the first warden, yelling, and it just unacceptable. It's not a way that business should be conducted. And so it's not just how the council has norms, but conduct with the council. I don't know how to phrase it, but yeah,
The
I
council
think.
norms, although they were called council norms, it was applicable to everyone.
Okay.
So it wasn't, they called the council norms, but it was the norms of the meeting, of the council and the council meeting.
I don't want to lose sight of a point that Martha made that I think is really important, and that is this notion of it being something that the council adopts every 2 years. So that it's there's an affirmative recognition of these principles of whatever behavior, decorum, what have you. I think that's a wonderful idea.
Thank you, Keith. So I think it was about a year ago, I sat in the seat right next to me, and it was COVID. Everything was COVID. We're emergency ordinances. We were stricter than the state. And I remember a statement that I made is that, and I'm going to repeat that, and that was, we as a council need to take in the consideration, the feelings of everybody in our community about whether, some are more afraid than others at the time. And I think that, well, it's not just the time, I think that's now. However, I think we had to be sensitive to everybody's input on that, and not dictate the policy. And I think the way we ended up going was a reflection of the way the community was thinking at the time and the input we were getting from the community. So I think we did a good job there, but that's having the ability to be able to, take in everybody's input. And I think that goes to the broader issue of sitting on the council. You have to take in everybody's input and all the input and then spit out a policy, and you're not going to make everybody happy, but you're probably going to be somewhere in the medium there. And that's just to the input part of the thing. But I know what Sven was talking about. People come in screaming at us, and that wasn't me. I never really got screamed at. It was Ken, poor guy. He got screamed at. Like,
Yep.
it was
Ken.
brutal. It was brutal.
But-
And as much as we disagree on policy on a lot of things, I always thought that was an affront to the organization of the council. It's a complete disrespect to this body. Because, obviously there's people that don't like me. I know that. There's people that don't like, anyone up here. But it's the body that we represent, which is the people. And I think. And that's what really used to just bother me, was people that used to think they'd have the right to come in here and just completely just disrespect the body, and with no good input, just yelling and screaming. And I can handle that. That's all right. People can yell and scream all they want, but it's the complete disrespect for the body as a whole that used to really stick in my craw. And I'm just wondering if, like, we want to say inclusionary things, but what if we have somebody on a town board who's not behaving that way? Are we going to do anything about it? Because if we're going to go out there and say, we want this kind of behavior to transpire on the council, and then say somebody on a town board is, just being a bully or something like that. Are we willing, as we put this together, I think in the back of my mind, are we willing to take action on that? Because I think we can say a lot of things. We can say whatever we want, but if we don't act on it, if we don't act in that manner, then it's just continuous lip service to say something nice. So I'm not looking for an answer on that. I'm just looking for a philosophical thought as we think through this policy. Are we willing to act on that if there's a violation of that?
That's a really good question. I wonder whether I don't know how our ordinances or rules of procedure work on something like that? You know, do we have the ability to? We obviously have the ability to appoint people. Do we have the ability to remove people? Do you know, Marianne, how that works? Or Martha, you may have encountered it over your career.
Well, I think, if I may, I think you have to be really careful because obviously people say things we don't agree with, things that we find morally reprehensible. But if they're saying them in their capacity as a citizen and not in their capacity as somebody on a board or commission, I don't think that's right. If they sit on a board and commission and do something, I do think there's, I think there is some recourse. I can't remember what it is, but of course. But I think we've got to really be careful when we start talking about that, because that's if somebody says something really horrible to somebody, somebody in the next says something horrible to somebody on the west side and vice versa, that's not really none of our business.
But going back to Marianne's, going back.
Be careful.
Yeah, I agree with you, Martha. Exactly. And going back to Marianne's point, I sort of like the words principles in the beginning, but then I'm thinking more about this word norms. And the norms are about not the political thought or not even, where you live, Martha. We all know that Neck is a good place, but is that following sort of some norms of decorum or whatever, let Marianne and staff think about those words and look at what other towns have. But I think there are ways to, I'm very happy to work with somebody completely opposite in political philosophy and thoughts, but as long as we can have a dialogue. But if they're going to stand up and screen and throw things and all that, well, is that really how we, the town, want to have norms? And it is a fine line, but I think there is a point.
Do we
I felt terrible that day with Ken, and I thought I'll never forget that day because it was way beyond reproach.
Which one?
Because it's nothing.
Yeah,
nothing much. He yelled at me in the hall too. So
yes, he did yell at you in the hall, Martha. Yes, yes.
And I walked in late. I didn't even know what was going on.
I don't mean to laugh.
But something that's the exception. That's the rare exception. I don't think that's even what we're talking about, because that, absent having police officers at every meeting, I could be able to deal with something like that. It's just that is going to be a very upsetting flash in the pan, but that's what it's going to be, and everybody calms down. And we've had that recently as well. I think we need to talk about setting the bar for the council, and I think that's what we need to be focused on right now.
I agree, Martha, and I thank you for that comment, because we as the council can set the bar, but I would like this to filter down to the boards and committees, because in thinking about this agenda item this evening, we had it's been bothering me since last Friday, so I'm just going to say it is what was in the newspaper about what went on at the planning board last week. You had there was an applicant who did everything by the law, and that's what we need to do, I think, is we sit here as the council and we make decisions based on the law and what's better for the community. But what I saw in that was an applicant who had done everything by the law, and because for some reason personal opinions got thrown out there in a meeting that I think sullied the reputation of that applicant. And that really bothered me, because I know the people there that were talked about are good people, but sometimes passions take over, and we can't have that, because we have to be, all of our boards and committees have to treat everybody fairly. And you see that on Block Island, where it's who you are, or stuff like that. But when you're before a board, you have to follow the rules of your board, and interjecting opinions about things are not part of that or legally part of that. So I'm hoping that as we talk about this, we can get it sparks a conversation and a thought in our boards and committees too, because I think what we're talking about here is fairness. And that's it. Like, I just think, I mean, I honestly feel, I mean, you run for town council. If you don't wake up in the morning thinking, how am I going to do something? How am I going to accomplish the goal of making the lives better for the people who voted for me, or the people in my community? And a lot of the times, like I say, we can say all these things all we want, throw these things out there all we want, but I think that each and every one of us sitting here are here because that thought has crossed their mind. But we get stuck in this minutia, or we get sidetracked by bullshit, and we can't accomplish that goal. And I think that's going to lead into the next item on the agenda, is your goals. Like, we have to, come back and focus on why we're all here. And I think if we have direction through our rules and procedures, I think that's great. But I don't want to go out there and just say it to put it up there because of what's going on, recently or something. I really just want to be able to act on something that I sign off on putting in rules and procedures.
Okay, well, remember there are parallel rules of procedure for boards and committees that are pretty much identical to these, and should have that same norms or standards or whatever we put on it. And I really think you're not going to get much farther than having an annual reminder that this is what we have. And I think that's really, really important. Sometimes, we all complain about, we enact these things and put them on the shelf, and that's what happens. And if you at least build in that you have to bring it out every year and look at it, you're reminded. And I'm not looking for punitive measures. I think that's talking about wasting time. But just make it really clear that we all, everybody represents the town, and I'm more concerned, just get your facts right. Don't go out and say things that are true and misrepresent things, even if you think they're true. Check them before you say them, for pity's sake.
Thank you, Martha.
Andre, I just wanted to point out that if the council members go to the New Shoreham clerk base, Appendix B contains all the rules of procedure of appointed boards, committees, and commissions. It was adopted by the council, and it can be amended by the council.
Yeah, that's what I was just talking about, Kathy. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. It's nice to hear your voice. I forgot there was an adult in the room. Thank you.
Common sense just tells me that if you want to participate, you use your inside voice. You don't bring your outside voice to a meeting. And it's really been hard for me. If anyone has watched my cubicle on certain issues, you could see my lips moving because I'm counting to 10 and there's steam coming out of my ears. But you got to do your best to withhold it.
The beauty of Zoom, Mark, is that, I have a mute button, and I call him Tom for Tom Durden, our town sergeant at arms. So it's a lot easier with the Zoom. And I'm not talking about you, but when we're talking about people ranting and raving, kind of screaming at us, I mean, it's kind of easy with the Zoom because, but you bring up a very good point. And I was thinking of you because, yes, you do have very strong opinions on things. But I also know what you did last Saturday. I know that your heart is in the good for the community. So, and like I said, you're one of those people that you silently do good things for people. And that's exactly what makes this community great, is because some of the best things done for this community are done by people that you don't even know they did it. And I think I mentioned that. We know you. We know who you are, but you don't. But we also know that you don't want the recognition for what you're doing. And I'm just, you mentioned it, so I'm just bringing that up because yes, and for anybody who doesn't know Mark Emanuel,
It's the Bobby Gilpin syndrome.
another one, there you go. But there's so many people in the community that are like that, the unsung heroes. And so if anybody doesn't know Mark other than these meetings, Mark does a lot of things that you'll never know of for people who need things. So
Next item.
wait a minute, is that RGB color on my screen, or are you really turning red? So that's how I feel about this. I mean, I think we just need to act decently. And I think I would ask our boards and committees to do the same. Even when passions are a little high on things. And I don't have anything more to add to this, but I think it's a working document. So hang on. Go ahead, Sven. And if there's anybody, if something dawns on somebody, they want to add to this after the meeting, certainly let Mary Ann know, because she did say that she's going to put a list together. So with that, go ahead, Sven.
I was just going to say, I think Keith started talking about this inclusion and respect, et cetera, and listening and participation. And I think if a copy's been sent to Mary Ann or whatever, and I don't know, Keith or Mary Ann, you may want to share it, but I do think we should have that in this norms document or whatever. I just think that it's very important, whether it's the they-them discussions we've had many times or other things. And I just think we should make sure that everybody's aware. So that's how we started it, this dialogue. And I just don't want to lose that thought that Keith started the conversation with.
Okay.
Andre, could I add one thing, please?
Yeah.
We actually already have in place rules of decorum, but I think it would be helpful for people to look at them and maybe specifically incorporate them in the boards and commissions and council procedural rules, because when there's a gap in our rules specifically state that Robert's Rules of Order are incorporated, and that's both in the council procedural rules and in the board and commission procedural rules. And the Robert's Rules discuss parliamentary procedure, civility, etc. So if you want to actually, state them in those rules, people might want to look at Robert's Rules because it has a nice outline and you wouldn't have to reinvent the wheel.
Oh, Kathy, thank you for that input. But as I said earlier, Mary Ann gave us a wonderful packet, and I'm sure everybody has read it.
Little book.
I'm kind of joking because
Robert's Rules, you don't need you don't need to have witnesses for the bad action of the someone misbehaving badly at a meeting because the entire assembly is the witness. That's from Robert's Rules.
Martha read the
He's
packet.
showing off.
Martha read the packet. Good for you.
Yeah, I've gotten that from a long time ago.
Okay.
Does anybody else have any more input on this discussion? I mean, I know we could go on until midnight on this, I believe, once we start talking. No, he's all done. All right. We ready to move on?
Yes, sir.
If anyone has any additional, as Andre said, any additional things that they want to change to the rules and procedures, by all means, please send it to me, and I will start working on this with staff.
Thank you, Mary Ann. Number 3, discuss and act on town council goals.
So let me jump in here again. I know we have an executive session. Kathy has told me she needs about a half hour, you said, for executive session. Is that correct, Kathy?
It might be less. It just depends if I get a lot of questions.
So since we also have goals also on the April, I mean, if the council wants to move forward with goals at this point, we can do that. If you want to wait and do it in April, we can do it at that point. It's strictly up to the council, because I know you had a meeting until midnight, you're here tonight, and you have another one tomorrow night.
I don't mind seeing you guys.
Okay.
I know this is kind of a standing, and I think we've we had a meeting in January or something like that. We had our goals on it. I think we need to stick to what we had spoken about before in January. But I do want to add, Keith sent an email about an agenda item about just getting an idea of, Keith, you'll know better than me. You can speak to me because you wrote it.
Yeah.
I thought it was go ahead. I just want to preface it. I think it was a great idea for a meeting before we get into the budgets, because that will set we'll be able to have a picture to set our goals. And I was told this one of my first weeks sitting on the council, because, this came up, and your budget dictates your goals for the next year. So, and your priorities. So Keith, with that, the email you sent, the agenda item you sent, I can't agree more. So if you just want to.
Yeah, I probably, in violation of the open meetings law, sent it to everybody, but I figured I ought to try to have everybody in the same place. It's really apropos of the meeting. The thing that the catalyst for it for me was the meeting that we had the other night in closed session, and my thoughts on that issue really being shaped by my lack of understanding about what our capital plans are and what that means, what our town's capital needs mean in terms of crowding, one project crowding another one out, debt service, creating calls on other appropriated funds, et cetera. So I just thought it would be really helpful to me, and I imagine for others, to hear from Marianne and Amy, who has to go to market with these things, just about, sort of what's on the horizon, maybe what each of us is thinking about, in terms of our, priorities on that side, et cetera. I just, and do it in a way that's not, that's kind of a view from 20,000 feet, as opposed to here's what our budget says. I just would like to do that before the budget rolls out. If that
No,
makes
I
sense.
agree 100%, because when you sent that, I read it and I thought, okay. And it goes to we have the list from Ed, when Ed was here, that we were working off of capital projects, and we had a timeline. And I'm not sure if Mark and Keith actually have that. Sven, the document I'm talking about.
Yeah. And Marianne has it, I know.
Yeah, Marianne, can you send that to the council? Because that's something kind of we've been working on since Ed left, in the absence of another one, an updated one. And I think we hashed those items out over many meetings. And I think that it'd be good to pull it out again for that.
Which one was that now? Was that your regular capital budget, your long-term capital budget, your 5-6 year capital budget you're referring to?
Yeah, and I also believe, there were things about on there like, New Harvard Vision Study. I don't know if that was a capital issue.
It was a punch list, really.
It was really a punch list of things that were pressing and important to the council at the time. I don't think any of it's going to really change. I know I'm not going to, I don't feel as though I need to change anything on it. However, it'd be good for the new councilors to see that. A lot of it, some of it was the capping at the transfer station. That project was going on. Like I said, I don't have it in front of me, but it was our goals of getting things done. So if you could just send that out, so that they have an idea of what was being worked on, and then I don't think there's anything different from what you're working on now.
I hope there is, because that budget was that plan was going to sink us financially. Where's the planning board?
Hired a builder. We hired a builder. Go ahead, Martha.
Where's the planning board capital planning? Capital budget. I guess I'm not following the planning board these days.
So do you want can I jump in and address that? As I
Please.
understand it, the planning board was the ones that came up with the capital budget, that department heads would send it to the planning board, and then they'll come back and present it to the council. What happened a couple of years ago, as I understand it, the planning board was taken out of that, and then department heads send their capital budget or their long-term capital to the town manager and the finance director. And then the town manager and the finance director, this was under Ed, presented the capital budget. Last year's my understanding, with the timing of Ed leaving and Jim coming on board, that capital budget process, and I could be wrong, but it's my understanding, did not take place, the long-term capital budget. So what I've done this year is exactly the same thing that was done 2 years ago. I met with all the department heads as well as our stakeholders that are looking for appropriations or bonding or some long-term capital budget funding. Amy and I are working on putting that together. And when we present to you the budget on the March 15th, it will also going to include your long-term capital budget, which will go out, I think it's 6 years. So that's hopefully answers Martha's question as to where it is.
Yeah, I think that's the document we need. I don't want to be talking about documents that were put together years ago by people who aren't here anymore. I think we need to deal with what's happening today.
I agree, but I also want that document to be seen by the other counselors because we can update it. It's what we were working on before. So I'm not saying we're gonna, that's our Bible now, but I think it'd be helpful to see. I think a lot of those projects were completed.
Andre, I'd just like to restate my goals, and I'm not discounting anybody else's. It's just that I have a different view of this position that I'm in. I'm not here for a marathon. It's a sprint for me. Anyone who knows my history knows I have never been reelected. So I have 2 years to get done what I want to get done. And quite honestly, we've already checked off 2 major things that I've wanted addressed. But the 3 other ones that I want to just restate are that Old Harbor Triangle. I've said so many times, we keep forgetting on Block Island who's wearing the white hats. Well, the commercial fishermen are wearing the white hats, and they're getting a raw deal down there. And I promised each and every one of them that this would be a priority issue for me. And then if it wasn't addressed and hopefully remedied in my tenure, that you are not going to see me on that ballot to even think about running again. And that's a promise I plan to keep to them. The second one is composting. That's something I'll take on myself with the help of some wonderful allies, and hopefully we can get that moving forward. And the last one is to convince the rest of my colleagues who have the authority and the responsibility to listen to what I believe is the majority of the island and start the process moving forward to eradicate the deer.
Mark, that brings me to a question, because I did talk to you about this the other night. And it's, I think we should all, as council members, have things that are dear to us, and that's not a pun, that we'd like to accomplish. And as the first warden, I think I can delegate that responsibility to people, or if councilors want to work on things with groups or whatever. I think the delegation of that job, it makes me very happy to be able to do that, because I can't do everything. But having those teams out there that report go out, report, okay, whatever it is, and then report to the town manager about updates, come to a council meeting with an update on this. That's fantastic. We'll get more done. So my question to you is, with our with our newly reconstituted deer task force, and I know how you feel about the deer, complete eradication. I know a lot of people don't feel that way. And I personally, I don't know how it would be done. I don't want to say, I don't think it's impossible, but I don't see, but would you consider or think about like an ex officio position where you go to all those deer meetings? If that's something, so, I wouldn't say a regular member, but like an ex officio member where you go and then give your input. I'm not sure. I mean, I don't know if the council would want to discuss that because I'm not sure if Mark's views are our views. But just it's something you're passionate about. And I wouldn't mind doing that if you wanted to do that. And
Yes,
if
just
somebody-
like I'll go to Conservation Commission meetings too, when they become an ally with composting. But if you think of those 5 items, or the 3 I mentioned and the 2 that you can probably figure out, those are what I call kick the can items. Things we've been kicking the can on for a real long time. And that's really what I want to address. I've said this before also. If you think of the really good town councils that I remember over 40 years, they were the tandem of Doug and Ed, and how so much got done with conservation out here under their tenure. Dickie Kiley and the group that he was with said, listen, let's stop talking about affordable housing. And before you know it, we were going upstate and lobbying for, and we got our housing board thing. These were really good town councils who you can actually say, well, they got something accomplished, even if it was just one item.
I agree. They got a lot done. But the 80s were a very good time for land conservation on Block Island. And I think I remember Hustle. Remember Hustle helped us save the land and environment. We went out, we did, these fundraisers, we sold t-shirts. We still have mine. And the young people, like I was in my 20s. I mean, we were out about that. And that's why I'm going to say it again. The young people of Block Island need to step up. And I know they're busy. I know 3, 4 jobs, whatever. And I think I may have even said this, like the Doug, Michelle, and the Ed McGovern councils, the Jimmy Ernst, that goes way back. We are maintaining, I think, the great things that they accomplished. But there's a generation between us and them, or me and them, that skipped. All those counselors, when they were on the town council, I think they were in their 30s. I'm 52. I'm the youngest one on this town council. And I think there's a big difference between the idea of what Block Island is and what should be. I'm the median age, by the way. I learned that at the senior advisory meeting. The median age of the regular Block Islander is 52 years and 6 months old, and I'm exactly that. And I just can't believe it. I sound like my father, but I am the median age, and that's very scary. But like I said, like, what can we do and I always go back to the groups Thursday night on Dodge, and I know this is kind of getting off the topic here, but that's a young, hip, really great homegrown group of people and business owners that do things down there they just did it. And they make Dodge Street really wonderful. But what I think what I'm saying to that is that I don't know how we can do it, whether it's time or you don't have the time, or you don't think that your voice is going to be heard. No, a single voice isn't going to be heard, but organizing and getting a group together will be heard. And I think I think the groups like the groups on Dodge. I think the Thursday night gatherings, the marches for social justice. I mean, I think the folks that that they're all young people who have a really great energy and great stuff. I think they should just organize themselves. Like people say, the council should do this or you should do this. I don't know how many councilors get a phone call that say, well, what you should do. I'm like, with everything, and this is what we're talking about goals, our goals, like we'll never accomplish them if we are always under, always trying to run down the road of somebody calling and saying, you should do this. What I want are people to get together and send the town council actionable plans or actionable items, what they think would be best, what they would like to see. Then as a council member, we can act on that. But being involved, being on the council and getting involved with everything, we won't accomplish anything. So that's what I just want to leave in your mind with goals, because I know people, oh, you should make one of these your goals. It's like, no, we have to put this back on the community. If that's what you want, then get together, or just as a single person, come up with what you think we as a council can do, whatever the topic is. And I'm thinking like the marches for social justice. Believe me, I heard last week, like, you need to do X, you need to do X. And I'm like, no, what I want is groups to present to me, because I'm the one with apparently as the elected official, the ties to get things done. And we will use that. If we got to go to the state or we got to go somewhere to get those goals done. But good ideas come from the people. They don't come from the town councils. We facilitate those good ideas and get them done. So that's what I'm saying under goals. And this is very long-winded. I'm terribly sorry because I'm thinking as I'm talking. We can't individually accomplish sitting here anything. We can accomplish a lot, but we can't accomplish everybody's individual, I don't want to say agenda or item that they think would be good for the community. We can facilitate that. And I think that's what we should be doing. But we should go to the people. And so when somebody comes up and says, you should do this, it's like, well, no, like there's a bunch of people, like if you feel as though when you have friends that think that way, get together, come to us, and then give us what you think should be done, because we're not experts on everything. So that's what I think. That's what I'd like to do. I'd like to give the people the idea that we're here for them and we're going to listen to them. And I can't do it all, but what I can do is facilitate and get things done that I think are good for this community. I know it was really long-winded, but somebody got me on the topic, and that's it. That's my feeling.
No, you get yourself on the topic. Just the only thing, Andre, I would caution you about is that you can't promise that anything that any group gets together and brings to you is going to be a viable project, and that's my concern. You can't just say, "Well, give me a project and I'll take it upstate," because somebody may come in. God knows what somebody might come in with.
Well, I don't mean me. I don't mean me. I mean the council. Like we.
Yeah, well, I know what you're saying. I think you're looking for ideas. You're looking for I have this conversation a lot with people, and one of the problems that we have is everything is so splintered. Things weren't splintered in the 80s. Things weren't. 20 years ago, things weren't splintered. I mean, I know nobody likes to hear this, but the fact of the matter is the housing legislation got through when I was first warden, and we all went to the state. All 5 of us went to the State House, and we just hit it. We hit it just right. We had the groundwork done, but that was also the year affordable housing was just flying through the State House. We never thought we'd get it passed on the first try, and we did. But we don't have that kind. I just feel like we have so many little splinter groups out here, and everybody does have their own agenda, and everybody has their own And it just doesn't feel like we have this. Everybody loves to talk about this great community, but look at it.
And we need to fix that, Martha. I know we've talked about that. Everybody has their everybody has their little, their kingdom here and there. They, they think they, and they work toward just that. I agree. We have
all the existing nonprofits. Some of them work together, but a lot of them, I'm just going to form another one so I can do exactly what I want because I'm like 3 degrees away from the one next to me on a 360-degree circle. But I'm not It's really frustrating. We're way off topic here.
I know we're saying, but I don't mind having the conversation, the work session. But exactly, this community, and you know it, 20 years ago, 15 years ago, I like to say I graduated from Tolman High School and went to finishing school at the Beachhead. And that's where everybody, when somebody is in need on Block Island, the poorest people literally will give their last penny in their pocket to that.
We're great in crisis. That's crisis. We've always been great in crisis.
We're great in crisis, but I heard this the other day. Like we are so good at building up people in need. But I think, I don't want to live in saying this, but I think when people in need start doing a little better than some, we tear them down. They get torn down. Like I said, we're so good at building people up when they're in need. However, if, so-and-so worked their butt off and got to a certain place, then it's like, you hear it. It's that kind of turns. And it's just, I don't think that's a reflection of us. I think it's a reflection of society. And that is, we talk about the fabric of our community and, how tight and close knit it is. And I do want to, I think I can blame COVID a little bit on that. People are going stir crazy, and I've seen angst in people the past month or two that shocks me. I've heard actions on good people, just kind of really? And I'm hoping on the end, and I said this last time, I think I said this last summer, I'm like, this is something we've never been through this before, and hopefully we're going to learn from the good and learn from the bad and come out on the other side of this just a stronger and better place. And that's one of my biggest goals is I've said it a million times, we need more community events. We need our residents and we need our locals in the street having fun with each other at some event all fall long, all June long, whatever. We don't have those anymore. Except for the roll call dinner. That is one event, obviously we couldn't have, where everybody gets together. You go sit, you go to the roll call dinner, sometimes you're forced to sit next to someone you can't stand, and you have the time of your life. Literally, the last roll call dinner I went to, Momo, you were there. McKay and Momo.
Well, you had to sit next to me.
Well, no, I remember Ed Roberge was on his way out. We called him up. We went the year before. We took Ed, and Ed didn't know Alan. Ed didn't know you, and you were on the council then. And we had a great time, and he didn't want to go the last time because he was on his way out. So we finally dragged him along, and I walked in there, and I'm buying my tickets for the raffle. And I know we're so off topic here, but this is just a function of Black Islanders and how this is how we are. And I'm buying my tickets. There's Bill Penn, buying the tickets for the quilt raffle. I turn around and he's hugging somebody who had a lawsuit against us. And they're just yucking it up, having a great old time. Don't take it personally. And I'm just that's Block Island. We go through, we're so good at talking about each other. But when we're all out together, we have such a great time. And that is this community. That is just the epitome of this community. And we can't lose sight of that. That's when I guess I'll end that with saying, we're the island of misfit toys, but we're just we are really good people. The community is really great. However, I do see a trend toward like people just starting to turn on their neighbors. And I mean, the normal people that always have, who they are, but that's bothering me. And I don't know what to do with that. And that's why I say, if you have an issue, you get together with your friends, you pull it up from the grassroots, give it to the council. We'll tell you to beat it or we'll run with it. And I think, Martha, that's all I was saying with that. Anybody want to follow up with that? But no, it's great we can have this conversation, because I think we can really get into like the nuts and bolts of things. And those are really how I feel about where we are right now. And
Hey, Andre, can I want to follow up on one piece of that about COVID and return to normalcy. Would it be appropriate for me to ask whether Marianne might find some time to present to us a plan that folks are comfortable with for getting back to meeting in person?
Yes.
Already started talking to staff about it.
Thank you.
And
I think it's really important.
And
I agree.
Because I think
I
one
agree.
of the points Andre was making is really important, and that is, more than half of human communication is nonverbal, and the quality of the discourse is really, for me, totally suffers through this medium, and I just hope that we can do that soon.
I thank you, Keith, for bringing that up, because I think Martha and I know Martha, I'm sure the other councilors have said the same thing, the town manager, like, we need to get back into town hall to have meetings. And I'll say, like, I was sitting with Mary Ann today, and Keith walked in and started talking to, Charlene in the other office, and I didn't know who he was until he opened his mouth. I had no idea who
But
he
you knew
was.
then.
And then he started talking, and I was like, "Oh my God, that's Keith Stover." And it's just, it was just like that just hammers home exactly what you just
so
said.
true.
But I mean, even that, like, I've had discussions with some members who work at the school, some community members who work up at the school, and if they really, I know they feel this way. It's like, why do we gotta, like, we're in school, we're teaching, we're doing this, or we're janitors up there, the school's open, we're in public, but yet town hall is not open. And that is, to me, division. And I think if you try to explain, which I told Mary Ann about the conversation, and I said, Mary Ann, we got to get town hall open, we got to get back in there. And Mary Ann explained, which I'll let her do when I'm through, but I think that's what we get. Like, we're at school, we're teaching the kids, and I get the teachers, like, God bless them, because it's public. I mean, it's you don't know where the kids have been away all weekend. You're safe. You talk about pods and what like that, but the teachers are going to school, teaching, and I think a lot of them are terrified. And and I agree, and I sympathize with them. I'm not agreeing. I sympathize with them on that, because it's easy to say, like, well, you're a teacher, like, go teach, like, but put yourself in those shoes. And I think I'd probably be a little nervous going to work every day too, if I was a teacher or an administrator or a janitor at the school, trying to get little kids to keep their masks on. I don't know how they do it. Sometimes we can't even get adults to do it. I mean, I can't imagine a fidgety kid or a kid with, maybe an ADD kid. I was an ADD kid, I can say that, but I can't imagine a kid who can't sit straight in class with the mask, and the teacher trying to maintain. And then the teachers got, some kids are online, some are in the class, like, but it's, it was mentioned, like, but town hall is not open. So that's division. In this community, it's fracture. And I didn't know what to say to these individuals. Like, yeah, well, I guess we're not open, but we're conducting business. Business is getting done. But Marion, will you answer that? Because the way you put it to me the other day was just like, oh yeah, like sometimes you just need to be told things you already know, but you forget. And
Well, uh, business has been conducted. I mean, if you look at what's going on as it relates to town business, we have major construction projects going on. We got the broadband projects going on. We're going to start up the water main project. So town business is going on, and town hall, in my opinion, is open. I've met with a ton of people in my office. I met with individual council people. I've met with other folks. We're holding, some meetings are being held outside. What town hall isn't open for is what I call the social piece of town hall isn't open. And I had a taxpayer call me and said, how do I pay my tax bill? I said, well, there's you can knock on the door, someone will come get it, or we have a little drop box, you can do that. She said, so I'm not allowed to bring it in. And then what I usually do when I bring it in, then I go and talk to everyone. That's the piece of town hall that is closed. And we weren't allowing folks to do that. And we have not opened that piece of town hall. And it was having the conversation with, it was an older woman, and I can just see it. I can just see her coming in every quarter with the tax bill and dropping it in and chatting with everyone, catching up, whether it's the holidays or the summer or grandkids. I could see that happening. And even if we start having meetings and stuff like that, the actual opening town hall, the social piece, I still think we have a little ways to go before we do that. I would prefer not to do that at this point. We can do some other things, but I think the social piece of town hall, I think we need to revisit this. I mean, things are going really well, don't get me wrong, with the number of COVID shots and the increase in the vaccination process and stuff like that. I would like to sit tight a little longer and then also see what the medical folks say as we move forward as a community and anywhere for that matter. So town hall is open. It's not open for the social piece. And I've met with a million people, not a million people, but I've met with a lot of people. And I've gone elsewhere to meet with folks. So anyway, that's how I answer that.
I know it's off the topic and I brought it up, but I mean, like I said, it gets stuck in people's minds, and it's crazy COVID, I think. And I think the goal is just to do the best that we can, to work together, to bring it all back down to listen. Why are you here? Why did you move here? Why did you move here in the first place? Because you love this community, and there were certain parts, and it's quirky. It was quirky. You fit. People moved here because they fit in, and sometimes that fitting in is because you weren't an upstanding member of society. But that's what Block Island to me has always been, is that nobody really cared. You were
I'm here because they're looking for me in New Jersey, Andre.
I'm not going to comment on that, but I mean, that's our community. It was quirky. I mean, you fit in because you didn't fit in. And I think we got to return to that, because it's just such a different, there's just so many people that are different in our community, but we're all one. And if we can remove the word community from that, and it's like, we all have red blood. We all have somebody who looks out for us. We all have somebody we worry about. It doesn't matter who you are. We all have somebody that worries about us. We all have somebody we are concerned about. And we're human beings. And I think we just got to, kind of circle back to actually acting like human beings. And I know this being pent up is a large part of, where we are with discourse and whatnot. People lash out. I get it. But anyway, I think I should be done about this now. Don't you get me started, but is there anybody else? Momo, you say I'm done?
Well, let's move on. We have 2 meetings tomorrow.
I'm just trying to keep us here until then. So you stay in the right frame of mind. All right. Anything else, council goals? All right. Next item on the agenda is to,
Oh, whoa, wait.
what, Martha?
I think we've heard Mark's council goals. The main thing that I'm concerned about is getting us on a realistic financial track. I think one of the things that I have found very disconcerting over the past year or two, and we're talking about upcoming debt or the possibility of more upcoming debt. And I say, but we still have to get broadband online, and well, that's done. That's done. And then no, that's not done. And I'm just not sure. I feel like people vote something and they think it's over.
Mhm.
And maybe because I've worked with numbers for so long and went back when we didn't have any debt, and I could tell you every debt issue we had back then, I still can. And sometimes I feel as though what we're talking about, we're getting to look at numbers in this town, in the governance and in the community, and a lot of the community, not all of the community, but a lot of the community. We're beginning to look at numbers the way we look at the state referendum numbers. They don't mean anything. They're just these big numbers that people, vote up or down based on whether they like the project or not, nothing to do with the money behind it. And I know we had, there was a debt schedule the other night that we had for I think it was something I wasn't involved in, but that's really something we just can't let kind of fall into, well, we have this grand plan for this, that, or the other thing. Grand plans are wonderful, but you got to have some reality behind them. And I just think we really need to look at that thoroughly. I'm not going to support looking at the total eradication of the deer. I would love to have the deer gone overnight. I've said that been saying it since 1978, but I don't see it as a realistic thing. I just want to be sure that that's clear. This isn't going to be a unanimous vote, or a priority even. And that's really all I have to say.
I think your first point, Martha, sums up perfectly how I feel about some of this spending and capital. That's exactly where I am.
And Keith and Martha, I don't know if you were on. I think you were. Keith's request for an agenda item is to go through all of that before the budget season. I think we're all. That's what I was just trying to make the point that we were talking about goals and objectives, and some of you talked at great length. I'm not going to, but I just wanted to say that was very much on my radar as well. Thank you.
Good point, Martha and Keith.
Thank you. All right, next item on the agenda is to discuss and act on matters pertaining to anticipated litigation, which has not been made public, where substantive discussions of strategy are necessary. This item may be held in closed session pursuant to Rhode Island General Laws 42-46-5A2 for discussions pertaining to litigation. Kathy, I assume you want anything to say before we go into closed, or do we need to go into closed? I assume we do.
Yes, we do.
Anything to say beforehand, or maybe?
Yeah,
No, it's an item that has not been
Okay.
in public.
Something new, huh? Great. All right, Martha, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I'm just, as I think I said early on, I couldn't find anything. Is somebody going to be able to call me the way they have? Sean, you still there? Sean disappeared. If not, I need the code to get into the meeting.
Martha, I'm gonna call you. I'm gonna call you as soon as I see your screen shut down on this one. I'm gonna call you.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You got it.
We good?
Yep.
All Okay, well, I guess I'll make a motion to go into closed session.
Second.
Seconded by Keith. All those in favor, Martha?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Sven? Sven here?
Oh, where he went.
Oh, we lost Sven.
I think he left.
I wonder when. Oh, okay.
Did he get dropped?
He's probably in the closed session already.
Yeah.
Wonder where we all are. All right. I'm in favor. Motion carries 4-0 with the absence of second warden, Sven Rism. Okay, so we'll see you for the public that's here. If there's anything to report, we will report when we get out of closed session. Thank you.
I hate Zoom.
Me too.
Me 3.
Do we have Sven?
I'm working on him right now.
Looks like we have Kathy.
And it looks like we have Sven.
Sven here.
Hi, Sven.
Okay, that looks
Martha.
like everybody.
I'm here.
We
We
have
have-
Martha, we
I'm
have
here.
Sven, we have Mark, we have Keith, and we have Andre. Yep.
We see you, Sven. Or we see.
I think we have everybody, right?
Yes, we do.
All right. Thank you, everybody who's still with us. Sean? I'll make an announcement that during the closed session, no votes were taken, and I'll make a motion to seal the minutes.
Second.
Second.
Seconded by Sven. All those in favor, Martha?
Aye.
Sven?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Keith?
Yes.
And I'm in favor too. Motion carries 5-0. And with that, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Seconded by Mark. All those in favor? Martha?
Aye.
And Mark?
Aye.
Keith?
Yes.
And
Aye.
aye and aye. Motion carries 5-0. We will see you all tomorrow at noon. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's so funny.
Thanks. Thank you, Andre.
How about that? Thank you all.